All right. Welcome back to the Geekset podcast, the only podcast that blend hip-hop culture and geek culture together. I'm your boy Deuces, and this is 101 with Deuces, the place where I speak with creators, curators, and people that you should know. And right now, we have the OG, the legend. We have Phil LaMarr on the podcast right now. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Just had a little computer hiccup here, but
Sorry.
You know what? Hey,
yeah. So
that's life.
That's life. That is life, especially now with the way that the world is and a lot of things being Zoom now and everything.
Right.
You kind of got to be an IT now. You got to have a setup and everything. I think if anybody did any time, like ring light was like a thing, like it was just a thing for social media influencers. But if you were in the ground floor and you had, I don't know if they're public or not, but if you had stocks and ring, that probably said, you probably was like, whoa, because everybody had to get lighting now. Everybody had to get camera now. It was a whole thing.
Well, and that whole thing about like, because I'm trying to think back to 2019, did I ever say the word Zoom if it wasn't just like, a sound effect in a comic book page?
Right. It's like, and that's the thing. It's like, it became such a pivotal part of lifestyle now. It's like,
right.
In this space, content creator space, I'm branching out a little bit more and everything. I'm doing a couple of, like background work and shows and stuff. And I'm just like, they're like, oh yeah, we'll just do a Zoom interview. We'll do a Zoom audition. I was like, man, I'm like, was it always that? I'm like, it can't be like that. And I'm like,
well, I'm just feeling like the people who had Skype, who like, we were the thing. How come everybody forgot about us?
They're the new hipsters. The Skype people are the new hipsters.
Right, that's like having a wax mustache.
Right.
Let me give you a call on Skype while I put on some vinyl.
So here's the thing. One of the things that we do on here is we give people their flowers. And I know at every convention and everything, you get your flowers as you can. But I want to let you know why specifically to me that this is so huge. Because I feel like what our inception of the hip-hop geek culture and our Geekset podcast, I feel like you were doing that from the start, like way back when, because with your characters and everything that you did on MadTV, and then kind of just like who you are, because one of the things that we try to overcome is that they have like the stereotypical geek, right? It's like it's always the awkward social distance, not social distance, socially awkward, the black kid. And I was like, but no, there's cool people in this geek community. And I was like, I want to showcase that black version, because I was like, when you think about like how black people are passionate about stuff, you go to a barbershop and they're talking about Jordan and LeBron, or they're talking about, who's the better actor, Will Smith or Denzel. There's a lot of passion to it. And I said, we bring that to the geek. Like if you talk about Goku and Superman and you hear two black people talk about it, you think that it's going to be a fight, because they're like, no, what you talking about, nigga? Like, no, man, Goku do this. Like, so I was like, and I was like, I want to make sure that I do that and bring that passion. And I that's what I feel like is like you.
See, that's you young bloods. See, in my generation, you didn't have that option.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But I never. Here's the thing. When I seen you though, I knew that that's in you though. Like even though you didn't have an option to showcase it, I'm like, no man, Phil, I can, because like you said, I mean, this is gonna sound crazy, but your black characters that you do are like I'm like, I see that. Like I'm like, oh, that's like that's representation right there. It doesn't seem forced, it doesn't seem out of character or anything of that nature. Right. I mean, obviously you're a black man, so like I mean, obviously it's going to be very natural. But it's
but see, this is the thing, Deuces, is back in the day when I was doing all that stuff, there were a lot of people who didn't consider me a black man.
Yeah.
Because I read comic books. I played Dungeons and Dragons. I was willing to do a guy who talks like this. That wasn't black enough.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I got that on both sides. There were white people who was like, no, we need you to be more you. Like, this is me.
This is me.
Because their thing was, I can get a white dude who knows that shit. If I'm going to hire a black dude, I need you to be black. And then there were black folks like, man, what you talking all white, talking about comic books and shit? Yeah. Right? It's like, that is not for us, because that ain't cool. Black people are cool. It's like, motherfucker, white people don't people listening to jazz. So why can't we have comic books?
Right. You want to know what's funny is, and this is why I love being in this space where I'm at now. So we'll every now and then, like we was doing like live, when the world was still open, we was doing like live events, live podcasts. And I said I don't want it to be a panel. I said I want it to be an interactive podcast. So we would have the mic there, but it was like yell out to us, like we're not doing this is question section. Like no, you talk to us like you're in the podcast. Because one of the constant things that we would get was people were saying, man, I'm listening to the podcast. I be wanting to talk to y'all. I be wanting to yell back with y'all. So we invited that, right? Okay. So because of our nature and where we come from and how we are, we have a good blend of like, comic book, the OG comic book, people that I've been reading comic books, watching anime my whole life. And then we got some new people who like don't know nothing of it. But then we also have people who all they listen to was hip hop music, because we have that blend hip hop culture, right? And I just remember this one time, like it was literally like we was explaining Dragon Ball Z and Naruto, and it was like this dude there. He doesn't watch anime, know nothing at all, but he knew Goku. He was like, but yeah, man, Goku though, like, what I'm saying? He be he got the hands on him and stuff like that. So it's like, and I love that because it's like you get to see two worlds clash, but it's respect now. It's not you guys are geeks, you guys are nerds, or you guys are, you hip hop, you guys think you're cool. It was just like, no, I mean, I don't know about it, but hey, but like y'all be having like the animes, like if they be having the girls sometimes, like it's just like it's always funny seeing those two worlds collide, and I love it so much because I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. I always love with like my gangster cousins be like it's always like it's a deal. Like, hey man,
right?
So wait, which anime should I get into? Like, should I try this one?
and to be honest, that is the side of diversity and inclusion that ain't nobody talking about.
Right.
I mean, because obviously they talk about it's like, no, we need to diversify in the halls of power and all that, but it's also happening in the other places. Like everything is opening up and people are recognizing the different sides that were always there.
It was always there but
they were not given voice. They were not given a platform. And obviously the internet, everybody got a platform.
Right. Well, you said one of my favorite quotes that you had said. I think it was on Vlad, but you were saying that the diversity that you love is not just always excellence. You was like, you love the world where Black Panther could be excellent, but then we also got homeboys in outer space. And I was like,
no, that's not what I said. Because what I said is diversity at its core is about excellence for me. Okay. Because the thing is, the more you open yourself up to more avenues, to more voices, to more perspectives, the greater likelihood you have of getting great stuff. Because the thing is, half of everything sucks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just statistics.
Yeah, statistically, yeah.
Because this is average, and then there's stuff above and there's stuff below. Yep. But the thing is, when you open that up, and if it's not just like a 40-year-old white dude from New York and his ideas, if that's this narrow. So there's going to be a lot more stuff that's not good. Right. But when you open it up to everybody's perspective, you get more great stuff. Now, what I was saying about that was, that was about representation.
Yes, it was. You're right.
And when you get, when we open up, the levels of representation and give people more platforms, then you release the pressure on the one. Because that's the thing. When I came up in the day when it was about being the one. It's the one black show. It's the one black actor. So there's all of this pressure because you represent everything. If Sidney Poitier got in a car accident, then we all would get our car insurance taken away. Black people can't drive, see?
Right, yeah.
But once you open it up, and like in the world we live in now, nobody has to bear that burden. Everybody can be themselves. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you didn't have to just have the Cosby Show, But back then, like, we can't afford to have just homeboys in outer space.
Oh, right.
But now that there's, a broad enough, platform for everybody, it's like we can have highfalutin, philosophical, and dumb fart jokes. That can all be us.
All be us, yeah. Having that spectrum and that range.
Right.
Which also, speaking of range, I feel like you are part of every fandom that is ever created right now. Like just going down some of your like you've been in Star Wars, Marvel, DC, Transformers, G.I. Joe. You were Smokey in that the Friday adaptation. You were in Mortal Kombat. You were in Capcom versus Marvel. So I mean, so really Street Fighter, Cartoon Network, and Nickelodeon. Final Fantasy, Walking Dead, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Matrix, Disney, and Pixar, and so forth and so forth.
Right.
There's really no fandom that I can think of that's major that you're not a part of.
Well, actually, up until very recently, there was. I mean, I was lucky enough. I got a little bit of Lord of the Rings. We did Shadow of Mordor, where I got to play Orc. But the whole in my my fandom rainbow for many years was Star Trek.
Oh.
Now, I kind of had a little taste of it. I did a movie back in the 90s called Free Enterprise, which was about Star Trek fans, and I got to work with Bill Shatner.
Right.
But I never really got to be part of the Star Trek world until last year. And I did one small little part in the new Star Trek animated show, Lower Decks.
Okay.
So finally. I broke that wall.
Yeah. But and it's crazy that like even with your whole start, like you always had, like, you said that you always wanted to do the voice acting, but you never really took it serious. But then then you finally did it, when MadTV ended, and it was a deal that you cut with a commercial agency, like, hey, okay, I'll do it, but as long as you let me do it. And it's just like, I feel like that was like, just like, did you know at that time that it was going to be such a major move for you?
No, because the thing about it was, I mean, when I came up, being a voice actor wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it didn't, that term was not, you got voiceover jobs every once in a while. Somebody had one, or you worked in radio, or you were a promo guy, or whatever. But being a voice actor didn't exist. If you were going to talk about it, you said, well, the stuff Mel Blanc does. And I always say it's kind of like before Bill Gates, tech billionaire wasn't a thing.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't a phrase, wasn't a job, wasn't a job description. Then all of a sudden, now you got them everywhere.
Right.
You can't walk down the street without tripping over somebody.
Right.
Oh, God damn it, I stepped on an Elon Musk. But same thing with voice acting. Once cable exploded in the 90s, and you had Nickelodeon, and you had more cartoons, then all of a sudden, there were more jobs, doing voices. And you could actually make a living doing that. Because back in the old days, there was 6 dudes who did everything.
Yeah.
And they were the only ones who could make a living as voice actors. Dawes Butler, Mel Blanc, Don Messick, and Frank Welker, who's still doing it.
Right.
But even Frank was doing stand-up too.
Yeah.
So for me, it wasn't like a goal as much as something I want to try. It was on my list. Like, I want to do a Broadway show. I want to do voices in cartoons. And no, it never occurred to me that it would turn into my main, job.
Yeah, because improv was the first thing that that you were like actively doing, correct? Like, it was improv, or was it acting?
Well, no, first I was doing, like in junior high, I was doing plays. I was acting, I was performing, doing plays. But again, not as a career. I wasn't a child actor. And then I did improv in college. But again, there was no idea. And of course, it's still pretty much impossible to make money just doing improv. So all that stuff was just stuff I loved doing.
Okay.
Which
is awesome, because then that helps you drive.
Right.
Because then it's like, what, I love doing this. So even if it's not the most successful at the moment of when I'm doing it, I'm going to stick through it because I love doing this. And then if it happens, to become successful, that's just an added bonus, because now I'm doing something that I love, and now I'm being recognized for doing something.
Right. Yeah. So, and it was not something you could have imagined. I mean, because when I graduated college, came back home to LA, started taking improv workshops at the Groundlings, and that cost me money.
Right.
But I was doing that again just for me.
Right.
You know, at the same time, I was trying to be an actor in LA, trying to find an agent and, you know, get a job on a TV show or a movie or whatever. You know, that was my job.
That was the job.
The improv was just, this is where I feel fun, this is where I feel loose, and I had no idea that it would turn into an income stream.
Right.
You know, because what had happened is people looking for, you know, comic actors would now say, hey, that's where, you know, John Lovitz and Phil Hartman and Pee Wee Herman came from. Maybe they got some new people. Hey, you got anybody over there? You know, young black comedy dudes? Like, I was the only one.
Oh, so it stood out. But you know, so but that kind of helped out, I guess, like I said, with your rise with everything, even with MadTV, because granted, like I said, I was a MadTV warrior. Now I understand that, you know, that I possibly wasn't there from the start, but I did go back. But here's the thing: like, I was a MadTV warrior until the end. I literally only started watching Saturday Night Live out of the necessity of, well, I don't have MadTV anymore and everything like that. Okay. But like those characters and just kind of now what I know about like just that world of sketch comedy and everything like that, it was like, oh man, so all the stuff that, you know, maybe back in the day I thought was like pure scripted, this is improv. This is them adding flavor to it. They're coming up with the concepts and then they throwing it. And then what brought the character to life is what Phil did to that character. And I was like, man, that's amazing. And that probably came from those improv classes.
Well, see, actually, that's really interesting because a lot of people think MadTV is improvised. It's not. It's written. Mm-hmm. But and it's sort of like for me at the Groundlings, I took improv classes, but then you get to level 3 and they say, okay, now you got to write it down. Like, wait, what? I'm just up here playing. It's like, no, write it down. Then you can sell it, dude. You can't sell that thing in the back of your head. I'm like, oh. And so then we started doing sketches. And you know, a lot of the stuff that you do in the sketch comes from an improv. It comes that same way. It's like, oh, I had an idea. But instead of just saying it once and then it going away, you write it down. And you know, my buddy Mike McDonald, who's Stewart. Yeah. He used to do that on stage. You know.
He did? Oh man, I don't think I knew that.
I mean, because we came up through the Groundlings together. Right. And that's one of those things. He would do that character on stage and audience loved it so much that he would write another sketch with that character. For me, I was like, I already wrote that sketch. I already wrote that idea. Why would I write another one? Because again, not thinking in terms of career. It's like, yo, man, recurring characters. Yeah. Rosanna, Dana, all them stuff. It's like, you know, I was not a business-minded person. Yeah. You know? But then you get into sketch comedy and you realize, oh, now I have a script. Someone can buy a script, you know? And, you know, I had the character, the UPS guy I did that one time. You know, I did that one sketch on Groundlings, but people loved that character, responded to that character. So when I went to audition for MadTV, I said, let me do this character. People like it. Yeah. No, and then once you get on TV, they say, no, we need it again. Because TV is about familiarity.
Yeah. No.
People want to see that thing they saw before.
And then with the emergence of GIFs now, like that, I see that GIF all the time. It's kind of like a synonymous with like if you are anxious about something, they throw that GIF in it because I see a lot of people use it all the time. Yeah, like but is that is one of your iconic characters. Your Michael Jackson was hilarious to me. Like you know, but like yeah, it's like you have so many iconic characters from there. It's crazy. It's two careers, but it's still one and the same because it's still your voice work. It's still a lot of that voice acting that you did that kind of sold some of those characters as well. But then, like I said, with the animation, you became you know, you are up there with Mark Hamill to us. You know, it's like we wow. Up there with so much. And
I don't know, because he got his face on it too. But the thing is, there is a definite crossover between sketch performance and voice acting. Because sketch is about doing a whole lot of different characters. Yeah. You know, like you talked to Deborah Wilson. And Deborah didn't really do voiceover until, relatively recently in her career. And she's fantastic at it. Because, when you covered in makeup and a wig and you still got to get the character through, you got to do it on a whole bunch of different levels. And voiceover is the same thing. You got to project that character, communicate that feeling through, different levels, through the voice, through the tone, through your emotions, you got to get all that. So it's a lot of similar skills, and sketch requires you to be able to do more than one thing. Right. And voiceover does too, because, and I don't know if you noticed, Deuces, but the whole voiceover industry is built on this really strange business model. Probably because it was 6 dudes doing all the jobs. So they made a thing where in a voiceover contract, the producer gets 3 characters for 1 check.
Yeah, I saw as you were saying that, and I was like, "What?" I'm like, I didn't think, but then it makes sense because it's when you look at people's. I think that's like, yeah, I mean, I get it, but it makes sense when you look at people's like credits. Mm-hmm. Like, it's very rare, like you see people on shows, especially long-lasting shows, when they're just one character. It's always this is the main character, then you see various characters always, and I'm just like, man, I'm just thinking like, dang, they getting paid per character and stuff like that. And then when I saw your interview, I said, wait, what? I was like, okay.
Well, and it's weird because I think a lot of the structures came out of just who it was. I mean, Mel could do 900 different characters, all talking to each other. So they built a contract around his skill set. Yeah. And there's this other thing where, in show business, a workday is 8 hours. In voiceover, it's 4. Oh. And that's because, Ruby Spears had a cartoon that Mel Blanc was in, and Hanna-Barbera had one too. And they're like, hey, do you need Mel all day? Because we really need him today. And it's like, no, he's that good. We don't need him for 8 hours. Wow. So they broke it up so that as a voice actor, you could do 2 jobs in a day.
Oh, okay. That's beneficial, I guess, especially trying to branch out in there. I think one of the most impressive things that I like about a lot of you voice actors when you guys are like really in it is how you guys can jump in and out of characters just like that, and then even get to the point where you can do a full monologue with 2 characters and it's just you back and forth, and it doesn't sound like all right, space, no, it sounds like a conversation, and I'm like, that is amazing to me. I think the first time I realized it was when they was talking about Regina King on Boondocks. Yes. And then with her doing, Riley and Huey. But then when I start looking into it more, I'm like, that's crazy. I interviewed Gary Anthony Williams. He was saying the same thing. And I'm just like, man, I'm very, very, like interested in that whole voice acting world, because I'm like, when do you get to that point where it's like, now I know how to separate these characters?
It takes time. I mean, I remember my first recording session on Futurama, watching Billy West do this scene in the first episode of Futurama where because he's got 3 characters in that show. Mm-hmm. And the scene is the professor introducing Fry to Professor Zoidberg. All of them are Billy.
Right.
And he recorded that, all 3 voices talking to each other, one take on the fly. And I just remember being in the booth going, because when you watch it, there is no way. If somebody told you that was one person doing it, you're like, oh, shut up.
Yeah, that's
because the voices are so completely different, and so that becomes like a goal, and it's not something everybody can do.
Yeah,
and it also depends on where the voices are. Like the first time I had to do something like that was on an episode of Static Shock, where they had the Green Lantern guest star. So I was doing both Jon Stewart and I was doing Virgil. And I was like, oh, you guys did this to me on purpose, didn't you? and I was like tempted, like my ego wanted to like, let me try to be Billy. Let me just do him on the fly. And then I was like, yeah, you know what? No, this ain't about me. This ain't about my ego. This is about this show being as good as possible. And I don't want to, go from here and not get all the way down to Virgil. Maybe just Virgil starts sounding like this. Like, no. So that time I have to admit, I recorded them separately. I did all the Green Lantern lines once, and then all the static lines after.
Have you ever? Does Dennis has he ever talked to you about you getting Green Lantern over him? Like, have you ever been like, you got me?
No. I don't think Dennis has ever heard that's right. And I'm trying to remember.
You said that, if I'm not mistaken, it was he went out for it, and you were like, "Oh, God." And it was like, and then they didn't give it to him.
Look at him. He looks like the dang cartoon.
He does. So I always ask, because I always wonder, because obviously when you're acting, there's roles you'll get, roles that you don't get, and everything. But again, like I said, you're like, he looks like the dude, he sounds like the dude. I feel like at some point, because even if it was just like tongue in cheek, like coolness, like just like, you got me, man.
I mean, actually, now that I think about it, I probably mentioned that to him when he came in to do Kilowog, because he guested on Justice League.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he just like, sorry, I gotta go shoot 24. Bye.
Oh, did I forget the clacker out there? I'm just gonna clap.
You have brought it too.
I know, I'm just gonna clap.
I'm mad because I was definitely expecting you to get it.
I mean, I could quickly go grab it.
Just clap. 1, 2, 3.
All right, man. Welcome back to the Geekset podcast, the only podcast that blend hip-hop culture and geek culture together. I'm your boy Deuces in the building. With me, I got my man Liv.
What up? It's Liberace. It's the Puerto Rican Santa. The spiccato playing, beat making, motherfucking legendary ass Puerto Rican. Sofrito Papi, and we back.
As always, I got my man Bacardi in the building.
Randolph today.
Konnichiwa, bitches. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God. I hate all of this. I hate all of it.
What's good, everybody? How we doing today? Hey, we got Didge in the building.
What is happening, people? What's happening, people? What is happening, people? What is happening, people?
He's out the booth.
But it's like I said, we are expanding. We are doing more. So they say make sure you go to youtube.com/Geekset. Follow us on all social media at Geekset Podcast on every social media. And rating reviews in, man. We are rating reviewers on Facebook, rating reviewers on Apple iTunes, rating reviewers on Spotify, Google Podcasts, whatever platform you're looking at. Give us some ratings, let us know. And then again, this is the only podcast that blend hip hop culture and geek culture together. We are out.
Peace.
Also, too, because growing up watching Static Shock, before trying to recognize who the actors was behind the voice, when I heard Static Shock, I originally thought it was Urkel. I told you that it sounds like young Jaleel White.
I've never heard that.
I'm telling you, now next time look at just like I'm pretty sure you can do it Urkel, but next time just kind of look at it and see, because like that's what I do. What I used to think before I started, before I grew up and knew. But I was like, because I was fresh off of watching, Family Matters with my family, and I'm like, hey, I think that's Sonic. I think that's the same guy. And it was like, as a kid thinking that, but it was not. It was, definitely you. Did they tap in with you at all for I know that Michael B. Jordan is trying to head the movie and trying to get it out there. They talked, I think they said that Caleb from Stranger Things supposedly is rumored to be Static, but I know that you're just the voice of him, but like, are you involved in any of that process at all?
No.
Oh.
No, actors are the last piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
Unless it's some big superstar and they're trying to, sell the movie off Tom Cruise, then Tom Cruise is a producer. And this is one of the things everybody, was hitting me up on, just like, hey, see if they can cast me as Static. Like, can you act?
Like, people was reaching out to you?
Right. I'm like, okay, because obviously you don't know nothing about Hollywood. You're asking an actor to get you an acting job. You know what? That's like asking a meter maid to sell you a car.
Right.
Like, she around cars, but she don't control them.
Oh, man.
all these people talking about like I could be Static is like, and I don't know. Michael B. Jordan hasn't said anything about this, but from what I know about show business, they can't cast Static until they have the script.
That is true.
Because the thing is, you can't just say, oh, he's got the right hair, he's gonna be great. It has to be about what kind of story it is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because what's called for in the characters, it can be different. Like the original, what Tobey Maguire did in the first Spider-Man movie he did is completely different than what Tom Holland is doing.
That's correct. That is correct.
And it's not, we love Tom Holland, but I don't know if he would have been as good in that version of Spider-Man. Because it wasn't as fun, it wasn't as light, So that's the thing. If the Static story is going to be heavy and dark, then it needs one kind of actor. If it's going to be big and actiony, and he's going to be flying around and doing a lot of flipping and stuff, then it needs a different kind of actor.
True, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And and it's funny because before Miles started getting his big, shine and all the love that Miles been getting, it was Static for me. So I'm like, man, I can't wait till we get to Static. And it's once you go into like the story of why we haven't got more Static and stuff like that, it's like you understand, and it's kind of like, man, I wish we can get this right, because we definitely, I think that this is definitely the representation that we would love to see.
Right.
But it was like, but then, like I said, when you read the comic books, you think about the anime, even when you play the Injustice games and just general, just like when you start thinking about, there's two sides of Static that you can tell. Like you said, it can be the dark, it can be the happy, it can be the super action packed. It's like which one they're going to tell. But like I do hope they do get it out. They get it right. They, everything that's going on behind the scenes. I hope they figure it out, because I do think that we need more Static, man. Like Static was such, like, I know it was one of those things. Like, it was a Saturday morning cartoon, and I just remember like when I watched it again, not even like equating it to like Marvel and DC that heavily, but just in general, just like, man, I love the whole idea of it. I mean, even with the Boom Babies and everything, I'm like, this whole idea, I can relate to it so much. And it was so important to my childhood and everything. So it was like, yeah, man, I hope that we definitely can get some type of, thing rectified with that and start getting more Static.
No. We don't want some type. We want a Static story as good as because that's the thing, is a lot of people, you know how it is when we're kids.
Yeah.
You see something and you just love it.
Yeah. You're
not assessing it. You're not breaking it down. But the truth of the matter is, the reason you love Static, the reason it resonates 20 years later, is because of the quality.
Yeah.
It's because of the intention behind it. With Milestone, Milestone wasn't just like, hey, let's just take some old cartoon characters and color them brown. No, they had a purpose in mind. And that was translated into that animated show. So to me, it's not just about bringing it back and redoing the same old thing. It's about carrying forward that legacy.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. Thank you for correcting me on that, man. I definitely do agree.
No, I'm not correcting you. But I'm just putting this out there because there are a lot of people who they think, that it's just about a look, or it's just about the color of the costume. And I get that, when you're taking it in, I don't want you to think, I want you to feel it.
Yeah.
But I do want people to understand that there is much more going on. And the reason we haven't had Static, part of it is, that the rights are very complicated. But to me, in a certain way, that's a good thing, in that I know that the people behind Milestone, the people who cared, the people who created that wonderful thing in the beginning, are still behind it now.
Yeah.
As opposed to rights just getting sold off, and there's a dude in China who bought it now. We don't know. He's never heard it in English, but he gonna do 3 different versions.
Yeah. And it also, like you said, it keeps that prestige, because you've seen it. You've seen us from having campy, horrible movies. You've seen the Catwoman with Halle Berry and Daredevil to now where these movies are being taken serious, right? So it's like, if we, what I'm saying? So the great thing about that being so tight held is we don't have horrible properties of it. You know,
Right.
that woman was done bad, and then it was done a little bit better, then it was done a little bit better.
Right.
We just got the greatness of Static, and then that's it right now. So we don't have to go through those woes of like, oh, we don't talk about that one, we don't talk about that one. You know, with Static, we got, you know, that high level, and so it's still, it makes it, you know, it's good for
Yeah, because there was nobody taking care of that character.
Yeah.
You know, there was just like, oh, Catwoman, that's next on our list.
Right. Yeah.
Cash in.
Yeah, let's give her a basketball scene where she's not really playing basketball. She's just moving like this, and she's
Right.
a cat. Like, that was probably one of the worst scenes in comic book movie history. To go back real quick, speaking of Spider-Man, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. That was you saying that was your favorite superhero movie, Spider-Man 2.
Yes.
Is that still? Now that we
No, because there's a lot that's changed since then.
I know, that's why I wanted to kind of double back on it.
Yeah, but I mean, because to me, well, I mean, too, I got an emotional connection because I'm in it.
Right.
But also, I thought Alfred Molina did such an incredible job, and as we know, with most of these, at least those early superhero movies, the quality of the movie, and a lot of times, rides on the quality of the villain.
That's true. Well, I thought my theory is, in general with superheroes, like you're only as good as your villain. If your villain's not good, then the story's not going to be the best to me.
Right. Because what is the guy, you know, represent? What is the challenge? You know, but I mean, yeah, I can't say. I have to go through because now there's roughly 20 times more.
Right, within just 2 years, it was like boom, 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 boom.
You know, and back then it was like, okay, I'm comparing Spider-Man 2 to Batman 3. Huh? Gee,
Right.
that's a no-brainer.
And that's why I often tell people, I'm like, man, if you wasn't there for like some of those bad stuff, like, and it's like I often piece together certain things. Like to me, the Tim Burton Batmans, that was the greatest representation of Gotham. Like I feel like even though, like I said, even though the Dark Knight series is good, their Gotham it seemed like a regular city. When I think of Gotham, like it's death at every corner. Like you don't know what's gonna happen. Right. And Tim Burton's Gotham, as campy as it ended up getting and everything, that representation of Gotham, because I love superhero movies that world build, right? So I was like, the reason why I connected so much with Black Panther was that there was the world. When we got Thor Ragnarok, we got that world, like, you know. So it's like the best ones have a world, you know, and that you can, that it takes you on a journey and stuff like that. And so that's kind of where I start looking at certain superhero movies when I'm trying to get in that comic book sense. But like your reason for liking Spider-Man 2 is you saying that there was no origin, it was a middle, it was a beginning, middle, and end, and then of course the great villain and everything. So it's like I understood that, you know, why that was up there with you.
Yeah, well, because I mean, think about it. Back in the day, what you're talking about world building, almost nobody had that in mind. You know, even because think about it, the franchises that were going on back then. James Bond, there ain't no world building.
No,
he's just in our world.
Yeah.
You know, it's like okay, the Ukrainians are the bad guys now. All right, now it's those Czechoslovakians, whatever. You know, whoever's in the news. Yeah. But Tim Burton, you're right, was building a world that didn't already exist. Yep. And that's, I think, part of the reason that franchise was able to, you know, go on the way it did, even though the people who came after him weren't that interested in it.
Yeah. But
they were just not trying to make sure they didn't leave no money on the table.
Right. But people try to knock the Tim Burton Batman. So I'm like, nah, there was still some good in it. There was a lot of good in Tim Burton Batman. I mean, there was, you know, it got wild at the end, but it was like it was still a whole lot of good within there.
Yeah. It was tough,
all right, so as we're wrapping up, we do have 2 segments that we generally do. The first one we do is called Top 5, right? Now, I'm going to stray away from some of the obvious top 5s that you probably normally get, but I do want to ask you top 5 intros from any cartoon or animation for you. So, you know, intro music is always good. So I want to know, what is your top 5 intros that you've seen on shows or that you like, man, I like that intro?
Oh, wow. Top 5 intro, top 5.
It doesn't have to be in order. It could be just so you know. It doesn't have to
I mean, again, I have a personal attachment to the static intro.
Of course. Yeah.
You know, because it's just showing him and his life, and it's got that. I mean, and back then, you didn't have hip hop theme songs.
Not at all. Not at all.
You know,
Yeah.
that was the only one. And I love the Clone Wars opening, but that's just because that takes me back to my childhood when you got that, you know, that Star Wars crawl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. If there's another 3. I don't know. I should have done some homework.
But then it would have been too scripted. I like it being on the fly. Well, if you can't think of any other 3, that 2 is good enough. We'll go with those 2. All right. So you are on record saying that you are more of a comic book reader than anything. And I do want to get, so it doesn't have to be like top, like best comic book, but what are some of your most prized comic books that you refer back to, that you'll go back to?
Okay, this one I can answer.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you see I got my DC Comics classics back there. One that I always go back to is the original 1939 Batman story, because those images are burned into my memory and just embody, you know, dark pulp action to me. Back when he had the guns.
Right.
You know? But more recent, something like, because I have a long box that is just my greatest hits. Comics that, you know, either I will refer to people, it's like, here, you need to read this. And the main ones are American Flag, which was this sci-fi, you know, comic in the 80s set in a dystopian, you know, Earth in, I think it's about 7 years from now, where the writer and artist Howard Chaykin, like, he called so many things that are happening now.
Right.
Like the climate change, you know, he back in 1983, he's like, they got a Chicago where the winter goes for 6 months and can't nobody grow nothing, so there's a food crisis, and everybody lives in a mall, but the mall is covered in screens, you know, and the main character is Reuben Flagg, who used to be an actor on a cop show, but they got enough of his character digitally that they said, okay, we don't need you anymore. We're just going to use the digital version to do the rest of the show. You're fired. And so then he went off and became an actual cop.
Right.
You know, and so I love it because it's funny, it's great action, it's a little dirty. So when I was 14, I'm like, I can't believe I'm reading this. My other ones are New Teen Titans, the introduction of Cyborg, Raven, Starfire, that version of Teen Titans, you know, which I just love. And I love the fact that it's still, you know, present in culture today.
Yeah.
You know, let's see. What are my other ones? Dark Knight, you know, just because to me, that was what took Batman away from the campy, goofy, back to that original 1939 badass.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, wait, is that 5 or is that 4?
That was 4. We got one more.
And the other one is actually I'm thinking about which graphic novel trades I hand off to people.
Yeah.
I get tied for 5. We got Kingdom Come.
Okay.
Which I'm hoping somebody will do a version of now that they have the technology.
Right.
And that they don't mess it up. Oh wait, what was it? Oh shoot, I just lost it. I had it. It was Kingdom Come. Oh, and Fables.
Oh, okay.
Which is not a big, hip, cool thing. Nobody's done a movie version of it. But you want to talk about world building.
Yeah.
I just love that on a concept level, where they took these things that we all know, all these fairy tales, and then turned it into this world and these characters, and it was just such a full world. Although I guess, I don't know, maybe there was a lawsuit or something about whether Once Upon a Time was based on Fables.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, I believe they I know there was a lot of debate online, like, oh, that's what it was, but yeah, I don't know if it was a lawsuit or not, but yeah.
But and the truth of the matter is, people, I don't know, I think it has to do with the internet, and people forget that time, changes things. Because when you look on the internet, it looks like everything is all there at once.
Yeah.
But not everybody can see everything at once. Sometimes people just take in the same stimulus and come up with the same idea.
Right, because I was gonna say that's not a foreign idea to say, hey, let's take this property that is.
Well, yeah. What if fairy tales were in the modern world? Yeah. That's that concept.
Yeah.
Anybody could think of that.
Yeah. So
I mean, I got into a whole thing with some friends of mine about this controversy over the Oscar-winning short, Two Distant Strangers.
Yeah.
And there's this woman who had another short, about the same concept. Like, and again, to me, that's like, okay, we all turn on the news and see a black man getting shot every single damn day. And it's like the same thing over and over and over. Yeah. It doesn't take a genius intellect to connect that to the movie Groundhog Day.
That's literally like, oh man, dude, this is Groundhog. It's so easy to put those two together. So it's like,
right.
People can have the same thought. It's just like, and I think that when it comes down to it, I think it's just because of success. When people see something successful that they had the same idea, like, oh man, that was my idea. And it's like, no, we could have had the same thought, man. Like that's
right. It's like, I thought of that before I saw them get an Oscar for it, so right. It's mine. And it's funny because I literally had this experience back when we were on MadTV. I had a character, Funky Walker, Dirty Talker. Who was this dude from the 70s with a big afro, talking about sex and funkiness and all that, baby,
Right.
And we shot the sketch. Actually, one of the writers had pitched it to me, and the year before.
Yep.
And I was like, no, I ain't gonna be no black man walking around shaking my butt. And I literally turned it down.
Right.
But then over the summer, I was like, that would actually be funny. And then I went back to the writer, and he's like, wait, what? He didn't even remember the sketch.
Right.
Like, no, you pitched me this sketch. And I told you that it was racist. I disagree now.
Right.
I think it would actually be funny. And so we'd had that a year before. We did the sketch, shot it, but now MadTV didn't air live. Mm-hmm. We would shoot stuff, and it would be like a month or two before it would air. The week after we shot it, Ladies Man aired on SNL.
Ladies Man.
I was just like, what the hell?
You start checking, who's micing me up?
Right. And it's one of those things like, okay, black dude with a 70s vibe, talking sexy. It's like, yeah, I don't own that.
And it's funny. It's funny because it's like he literally says, I'm sexy talking. Like the Ladies Man, he literally says that. So it's like that's the whole premise. That's hilarious. All right, last segment we always do is recommendations. It could be something you're reading, watching, listening to, or anything, but something that you think that our fans should get into.
Okay. Let's see. Well, I'm really enjoying, obviously, the new Marvel stuff, Falcon and Winter Soldier. For anybody who, and I can't imagine anybody watching your show hasn't watched all that.
Right. Yeah.
That would be dumb.
Right. That would be weird.
It's like, how you call yourself a blurb? You ain't seen that. What else am I? Well, obviously, those top 5 comics, because I feel like those are some things that a lot of people don't know about these days. Go find American Flag. I mean, obviously people know about Teen Titans.
Yeah.
But Fables 2 is another good one. And Star Trek Lower Decks is a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I'm that's the one fandom that I'm late to because I equated it to my dad. So it was always kind of like, Star Trek's boring, whatever. But then with the new movies, I said, you know what? I like the new movies. And then I said, I'm gonna go back and give it a second run. I just haven't got a chance to yet. But I was like, I want to go back and see what it is now with this world that I'm living in, because I never really was fully into that, because again, that was my dad's show,
Right. And do you like Rick and Morty? You ever watch Rick and Morty?
Yeah, of course.
So, because Mike McMahon, who created Lower Decks, worked on Rick and Morty.
Okay.
So imagine Star Trek with some of that Rick and Morty flavor.
Okay.
That's Lower Decks.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out. I definitely am, man. All right, man. Well, where can my people find you, man?
I'm on Instagram at Phil LaMarr. Basically, I'm at Phil LaMarr.
At Phil LaMarr, yeah.
2 L's in the middle, 2 R's on the end.
Well, man, I definitely appreciate you. As always, y'all, this has been the only podcast that blend hip-hop culture and geek culture together. I've been your boy Deuces. This has been the GOAT, the OG. This has been Phil LaMarr, man, and we are out. Peace. You like that video? Man, thank you for watching. We truly appreciate it. We got so many more videos on our page, so make sure you check them out over here. Hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell so that way you can always be notified anytime we release a new video. You already know how Geekset get down. We got so much coming for y'all, man. Check it out. Stay in tune.